Welcome to photosNtravel, a show that introduces you to fascinating places around the world. Please welcome our host and tour guide, Jonathan van Bilsen.
Hello and welcome. Traveling through Europe is always exciting, and the Bavarian countryside of southern Germany, with its beautiful cities, storybook castles, and its wonderful waterways leaves you breathless. Today we're going to visit Ludwig's Castle, explore some wonderful cities, and check out a historic site. We'll then travel along the Rhine and explore medieval Germany. We'll be right back after these messages.
Promotional products and apparel from PP Print will create a positive, lasting impression with customers that sets you apart from your competition. PP Print, where it's about your brand.
Not all Canadians have the time nor desire to manage their finances, and often that responsibility is up to financial professionals. Our goal is to help Canadian families achieve a happy and successful financial future. Visit us, the McClellan Financial Group of Asante Capital Management.
I love to travel and explore new locales filled with history, culture, and cuisine. On a recent trip to Europe, I had the opportunity of spending a few days in Bavaria. My first stop was the wonderful city of Munich, the region's capital. It is a fantastic city and is also the center for Oktoberfest, as well as the gateway to castles, villages, and great food. In this segment, we're going to explore Munich and discover some of its fantastic sights. For me, the best way to travel to Western Europe from North America is to get as late a flight as possible, allowing me to land around 11 a.m. I always use Mozio, which is a global taxi network for my airport pickups, and yes, gratuities are included. It's usually too early to check into my hotel, so I drop off my luggage, get a bite to eat, and buy a day pass on a hop-on, hop-off bus to explore the city. I find the narration you receive, along with a great overview of the city, is a fantastic way for me to start exploring. I usually start to fade late afternoon, but make a point of staying up until at least 8 p.m. That way I get through the jet lag, and the next day, I'm my usual self. I should mention that if you suffer from jet lag, cover yourself in talcum powder before you get dressed to board the plane. Also buy some liquid oxygen at a health food store and put a half dozen drops into a water bottle, small enough to allow it on the airplane. Sip it constantly during your flight and you'll be amazed at how refreshed you feel. It's also good for altitude sickness. Another item I would recommend is compression socks, especially if you're over 55. The city of Munich is beautiful. The old town is amazing and dates back to the 12th century. You'll find hundreds of shops, eateries, and very old sites to visit. With a population of just over 1.5 million inhabitants, it is the third largest city in Germany and the 11th largest in the European Union. Bavaria was established as a sovereign kingdom in 1806, and Munich became a major European center of arts, architecture, culture, and science. BMW World is another great place to stop over because, next to tourism, Bavarian Motor Works is the largest revenue producer in Bavaria. This museum brings to life over 100 years of automotive fascination, innovation, and the joy of driving. Who knows, you may even buy a car while you're there. There are very few people who have not heard of Oktoberfest, a word synonymous with Munich. It is, of course, a big draw, and preparations begin early in the year. The 16-day event draws over 7 million visitors and serves 7 million liters of beer. That's almost 2 million gallons. They also serve 170,000 liters of non-alcoholic beverages and 95,000 liters of wine. Don't forget the coffee and tea, as 300,000 liters or 80,000 gallons of the caffeine fix are served up, along with 1.2 million liters of water and lemonade. Food, of course, is a must when drinking beer, and 550,000 chickens, along with 150,000 pairs of sausages, accompany 45,000 kilograms of fish, 116 oxen, and 57 calves. It's hard to fathom the preparation that must go into an event of this caliber. The electricity Oktoberfest uses would do a family of 4 for 52 years, and the facilities include 1,000 toilets, 900 meters of urinals, and 17 full-service accessible facilities. So what does all this cost? Beer is served in liter mugs at $17 Canadian. In short, the total money brought to Munich from Oktoberfest is $2 billion. I spent a day traveling to one of Germany's and probably the world's most picturesque castles. Neuschwanstein stands outside the town of Füssen, about a 2-hour drive from Munich. It's a fairy tale-like castle built by Ludwig II in honor of his good friend and composer, Richard Wagner. The castle served no defensive purposes and was strictly meant to be a quiet retreat for its inhabitants. Walt Disney toured the castle and decided to use it as a basis for his famous Cinderella Castle in Disneyland and Walt Disney World. The castle sits high on a hill, and there's a tram that takes you to Maria's Bridge, where you can get a fantastic view of the palace. From there, it's an upward hike to the entrance and a tour of the inside. You must get tickets beforehand, as they're all for timed entrances. The trip is worthwhile, and the experience whisks you back to the days of knights and kings. The construction of Neuschwanstein was started in 1869. As he increasingly withdrew from human contact and focused more on his royal dignity, Ludwig II changed the architectural plans dramatically. The guest rooms were replaced by a Moorish hall with a fountain, but this was never actually built. The writing room was changed into a small grotto, and the modest audience room became a huge throne room. This was no longer intended for giving audiences, but was built as a monument to his own kingship. Highly modern steel construction was necessary in order to incorporate this hall. The castle was intended as a private residence for the king until he died in 1886, only 2 years after he moved in. The cost of the building was skyrocketing, and Parliament decided no more funding. In fact, they wanted to get rid of Ludwig altogether. He was arrested and died mysteriously. The castle was opened to the public shortly after his death. Since then, more than 61 million people have visited Neuschwanstein, with more than 1.3 million visitors annually. In summer, as many as 6,000 tourists per day flock to see the fairy tale castle. My next day in Bavaria was spent visiting Berchtesgaden, also known as the Eagle's Nest. This is the location of the famous summer retreat of Adolf Hitler. If you're expecting to see Hitler's rooms, furniture, and lifestyle, you're going to be disappointed, as the entire complex was demolished in the 1950s by the victorious Allies, who wanted to leave nothing behind for any Nazi sympathizers. The bunker still remains, however, it has recently undergone a 2-year restoration. In actuality, the only remnant left standing is the elevator, which takes you to the top of the mountain. Hitler was so impressed with the area that he bought a small cottage where he could paint and relax. When he was elected Chancellor of the Third Reich, he appointed his secretary Martin Bormann to redesign the place. The problem was, strangers would show up unannounced at Hitler's doorstep, hoping to get a glimpse of the Reichschancellor. Surrounding houses and farms were purchased by Hitler's inner circle, and those who did not wish to sell were transported to work camps in Auschwitz and the like. Those camps at the time, however, had not yet been converted into the famous death camps. All in all, there were 80 buildings in a compound which resembled an industrial site rather than a Bavarian countryside retreat. In contrast, the town of Berchtesgaden is quite beautiful with its small shops, cobblestone streets, and many small eateries. It's a great day trip from Munich. If time permits, a visit to the Austrian town of Salzburg will not disappoint. It's only half an hour from Berchtesgaden, and the scenery en route is breathtaking. Salzburg was originally the site of a Celtic settlement, and around 700 CE, Catholicism founded an abbey there. Among the numerous sites to visit, Hohensalzburg Fortress is a must. This large medieval castle sits atop the Festungsberg and is 250 meters or over 800 feet long, making it one of the largest medieval castles in Europe. If royal residences are your thing, Mirabell Palace is a historic building with spectacular gardens. It's a cultural heritage monument and part of the historic center of the city of Salzburg, as well as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Salzburg is of course synonymous with Mozart, who was born in this house in 1756. The Mozart family resided on the third floor from 1747 to 1773. The house where the Mozarts lived is on Getreidegasse, a busy shopping street in the historic district of Salzburg. The narrow street is characterized by numerous high townhouses side by side with wrought iron gilt signs. Another worthwhile visit in Salzburg is the main cathedral. It's a 17th century Baroque structure and is dedicated to St. Rupert, who founded the church in 774 on the remnants of a Roman town. The cathedral was rebuilt in 1181 after a fire, and again in the 17th century. Salzburg Cathedral still contains the baptismal font in which composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was baptized. My last stop visiting Salzburg is Schloss Leopoldskron. This beautiful old palace was used for the filming of The Sound of Music in 1964. It's now a hotel, and staying there will be quite a treat. I'm sure you'll wake up to the singing of the hills as they come alive with the sound of music. Visiting Berchtesgaden was an amazing snapshot into the historic past of this region. I learned so much. Neuschwanstein Castle was also fantastic with so much attention paid to detail. Ludwig certainly knew how to do it up right. I love the city of Munich with its Oktoberfest, and I look forward to visiting Frankfurt, which we'll explore right after these messages.
At Voss, your independent grocer, it's all about hometown living and shopping. Owned and operated by Port Perry's own Terry and Christine Voss, the independent grocer carries many local items to support our town and its residents. Pet Value has a fleet of services to help you and your pet live their very best lives. Visit Pet Value Port Perry for all of your pet's needs. Pet Value, your pet, your store.
Welcome back. We're going to continue our visit to southern Germany and take a trek along the Rhine, the country's second longest river. We'll end our adventure in Cologne and view the beautiful cathedral. Frankfurt on the River Rhine is another of my favorite cities in southern Germany. It's the European hub for Lufthansa Airlines, which is the reason I've been to this central German city numerous times. Recently, however, I decided to do a 2-day layover and explore what I had previously only seen at the airport. Most international travelers simply refer to the city as Frankfurt. However, to locals, it's Frankfurt am Main. The reason for the additional text is there's another city named Frankfurt am Oder, located on the Oder River. The Frankfurt we always think of is located on the 550-kilometer long Main River, a tributary of the Rhine. Frankfurt is one of Europe's oldest cities and has a population of 750,000, making it the 5th largest city in Germany. If you include the surrounding area, the population climbs to 2.3 million. The city prides itself on being a global hub for commerce, culture, education, tourism, and transportation. Although I expected a more rustic German city with small white houses, men dressed in lederhosen, and women carrying fruit baskets singing everywhere, I was not at all disappointed. The main business section is like many other cities, albeit quite modern. Tall glass buildings lined along the River Main are a sign of the prosperity Germany has enjoyed since World War II. The Old Town Square is still my favorite place to visit in the entire city. It takes you back to that Bavarian feel, complete with wooden balconies, intricate facades, and many quaint and unique shops. The actual name of the square is Rommerburg, which translated means Roman mountain. This area has been the seat of Frankfurt's administration since the 1400s. The square has been a location of many coronations, public events, and of course, one of Germany's most spectacular Christmas markets. Germany, particularly Frankfurt, is in my opinion the place to travel during the Christmas season. Walking around all bundled up while you munch on a bratwurst, drink some mulled wine, and stuff yourself with marzipan treats will make this an unforgettable experience. After strolling around the 200-plus ornately decorated stalls of the market and eating those Frankfurters, you can enjoy a cruise on the River Main while you partake in some typical Frankfurt biscuits. For just over $100 per person, you can enjoy a Frankfurt Christmas package, which includes an overnight stay with breakfast at one of the many hotels, a Frankfurt card so you can travel anywhere for free, a Christmas market voucher booklet, a cruise on the river, and a free skating session on Frankfurt's largest skating rink. Frankfurt has some old-fashioned meals, usually reserved for the Christmas season. Products like Bethmunchen, a delicate almond and marzipan biscuit, hot apple wine, and Ketchummunchen, small figurines made of dried plums, are Frankfurt customs and make for tasty souvenirs for friends at home. Green sauce crepes, served with brisket of beef or delicious Hankas fondue, are newer traditions and have gained in popularity over the years. The best place to enjoy these culinary specialties is in one of the warm and cozy taverns situated all around the Christmas market. Another great thing to see and do in Frankfurt is a visit to the Palmengarten, or Palm Gardens, which is an expansive botanical garden complex featuring palm and orchid collections displayed in greenhouses. A visit to the house of the famous German writer Wolfgang Goethe is another must-see on your Frankfurt adventure. Now a museum, the homestead was the family residence of the Goethe family for 200 years until 1795. Of course, like most European cities, the cathedral is the center of the old city. Frankfurt St. Bartholomew Cathedral is no exception. This is the third church on the site and dates back to the late 1800s. Excavations have shown the original buildings were constructed in the 7th century. In 2011, Frankfurt founded the Cathedral Choir School, which is a mixed ecumenical children's and youth choir. They perform during Mass and evensongs, as well as give recitals. In a few short years, this choir has rivaled the famed Vienna Boys Choir. When you're traveling through Europe and have a layover in Frankfurt, consider spending a couple of days there. If you can make this happen around Christmas time, you'll have memories to last you a lifetime. There's a traditional German folk song, loosely translated. It's entitled, "If the water of the Rhine was wine, oh how I would like to be a fish." The song goes on to explain the beauty and history of one of Europe's most well-known attractions, the River Rhine. The center of Western European romance, culture, and tradition all originates within this spectacular waterway. Although I've never taken a complete river cruise down this majestic river, I have had the pleasure of driving it numerous times and taking short boat trips. Having been born in the south of the Netherlands, less than an hour away from the Rhine, I have fond memories of childhood excursions and in recent years wonderful visits to the many picturesque villages, fine wineries, and medieval castles along its path. One of the most popular river cruises starts in Basel, Switzerland and ends in Rotterdam, with many stops along the way. If you choose to drive the route, I would recommend flying into Munich, driving through Füssen, and connecting with the Rhine in Basel. Take a week and drive leisurely to Rotterdam and then on to Amsterdam, staying at boutique hotels and guest houses along the way. The reason I suggest Munich is because the town of Füssen, which as I mentioned earlier is home to Europe's most famous castle, Neuschwanstein. This will give you an opportunity to visit the fairy tale castle before you begin your Rhine trek. The palace is actually in the town of Schwangau, but Füssen offers more hotels and you can still walk to the fortress. Many people do not realize you're only a kilometer from the Austrian border. If you have time, spend a few days in this area, as there are more than 60 palaces in the Schwangau region, including Hohenschwangau Castle, the childhood home of Ludwig. As we drive to the Rhine, which takes about 3 hours, we stop at breathtaking Lake Constance in Bodensee, located on the northern border of the Alps. It's a photographer's paradise. The city of Basel is the third largest in Switzerland and is at the point where Germany, France, and Switzerland meet. Although the city is somewhat industrial, it does boast many theaters and museums, including the Museum of Fine Arts, home to the world's oldest art collection accessible to the public. The next main stop is the French city of Strasbourg, the capital of the famous Alsace region. Classified as a World Heritage Site, the city center is comprised of historic buildings which date back to the 1400s. The buildings resemble something out of a fairy tale book, complete with a stone bridge which spans the River Rhine. The city is quite cosmopolitan and features the oldest Christmas market in France, along with one of the country's most spectacular cathedrals. We continue our trek upriver to stop at Mannheim and visit its Romanesque water tower, the city's landmark. I would recommend skipping most of the city, instead venturing on to Heidelberg, Germany's warmest city with fig and almond trees everywhere. Heidelberg Castle sits high above the city, and after a tour which takes you back to medieval days, you can relax while taking in picturesque vistas of the city. Heidelberg's main street is a pedestrian mall and stretches the entire length of the old city. Like all cities along the Rhine, Heidelberg also boasts beautiful stone bridges, the oldest dating back to the 1700s. Many people are not aware that U.S. Army General George Patton had an automobile accident in Mannheim and later died in Heidelberg Hospital. Our next stop along the Golden Rhine is the Lorelei, located just south of the town of Koblenz, where I would suggest staying overnight. The Lorelei is a massive rock on the eastern bank of the Rhine, which soars 120 meters above the waterline. It marks the narrowest part of the river and is the start of the famous Rhine Gorge, a 65-kilometer stretch which runs from Bingen to Koblenz. The area is prone to boating accidents because of its extremely strong current. The name Lorelei is also the name of a feminine water spirit, similar to mermaids or Rhine maidens, associated with this rock in popular folklore and literature. One of the most scenic cities along the Rhine is Cologne, where the famed perfume was first introduced. The city began as a Roman outpost in the 1st century CE, and is most famous for its spectacular cathedral, which was started in 1248 and finished 632 years later in 1880. Aside from being a magnificent cathedral, it's also the home of relics allegedly belonging to the three wise men. From Cologne, I traveled into the Netherlands, ending up in the country's second largest city of Rotterdam. The city is best known as having the world's busiest port, but industries like finance and diamonds have also made their mark. After visiting Rotterdam, drive to the Dutch capital of Amsterdam for your flight home. Be sure to take a canal tour because you can never get tired of European rivers. In a previous episode of photosNtravel, we visit the city of Amsterdam and dedicate the entire episode to its splendor. Check it out before you visit. And that ends our adventure to southern Germany. The Rhine was spectacular, and visiting Ludwig's Neuschwanstein Castle was like taking a trip back in time. How could you not enjoy Munich? And every time I visit Frankfurt, I stop at a roadside eatery to enjoy a Frankfurter. Who knows, maybe next I'll venture to Hamburg and taste a hamburger. For photosNtravel, I'm Jonathan van Bilsen. It's been my pleasure to be your guide today, and I look forward to our next adventure. If you like this program, please click the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode.
Want to know what's happening in Skugog? News and lifestyle, changes in business, and all the entertainment information you'll ever need. Plus, each edition has a new photosNtravel article. Look for your next copy in your mailbox.
As our communities begin the slow road to reopening, there are still issues needing closure. In these crazy times, let us be a roadmap to community events and issues we face together. TheStandardNewspaper.ca, raising the standard in our community.